This is a Squiz Kids podcast. Your fresh take on what's happening in the world around you.
Each fortnight we give the world globe a spin and see where we land. Then we take the kids of Australia on an audio excursion to visit that country and its people. I'm Christie Kijurina. And today on Squiz the World, we're heading to a land of towering fjords, mighty Vikings, and a sky that sometimes stays bright all night and sometimes goes completely dark for weeks. Can you guess? Strap yourselves in to the Squiz Kids Superfast Supersonic Jetliner as we take off and take a squiz at Norway.
Just the facts.
Norway is a land of breathtaking landscapes where towering mountains plunge into glacial fjords, deep, narrow waterways that were carved into the land by Ice Age glaciers thousands of years ago. Officially called the Kingdom of Norway, this country has a king and a prime minister. King Harald V is the head of state, but the government is run by elected leaders, making Norway a constitutional monarchy, like Australia and the UK. In summer, the sun never sets in parts of the country. Imagine playing outside at midnight with the sun still shining.
That's incredible.
This is called the midnight sun, and it happens because Norway is so far north that the Earth tilts in a way that keeps the sun above the horizon for weeks on end. But in winter, the opposite happens, polar night, where the sun disappears, leaving the sky dark for up to 2 months in parts of the country. Stretching 1,700 kilometres from top to bottom, about the distance between Melbourne and Brisbane, Norway is a long and skinny country, wedged between Sweden and the wild North Atlantic Ocean. It's part of Scandinavia, a group of countries including Sweden, Denmark and sometimes Finland, with a shared language root and history. It even shares an almost 200-kilometre border with Russia up north. The capital of Norway is a lively city called Oslo. But most of Norway is open space, perfect for skiing, hiking and exploring nature. Only 5.4 million people live in Norway, about the same as the population of Sydney. Wow! But the country is one of the richest in the world, thanks to huge oil and gas reserves. And instead of spending it all, Norway saved up, creating one of the world's biggest wealth funds to benefit future generations.
Thank you.
And even though they sell oil, Norway itself runs mostly on hydroelectric power, using its rivers and waterfalls to generate energy. Now that we know a little bit about the facts and figures of Norway, let's find out more about the people.
Let's get cultural.
Norway is a land where history and myths collide, where real-life warriors set sail across the seas and mysterious creatures were said to lurk in the mountains. It's a place of Vikings, trolls and magical stories. 1,000 years ago, Vikings ruled the seas, and many of them came from Norway. These weren't just any old warriors, they were brilliant shipbuilders and fearless adventurers who set sail as far as North America. If you love Marvel, you'll already know some of their gods. Thor with his mighty hammer, and Loki the trickster. These weren't just comic book characters, they were real Norse myths that the Vikings believed in. And Viking legends weren't just about gods and warriors, they also told tales of trolls. Giant, lumpy creatures with big noses and wild hair. Trolls were said to live in the mountains and forests, turning to stone if sunlight hit them. No! To this day, Norway's landscape is so dramatic, you wouldn't be surprised if a troll really did stomp through the fjords. There's even a windy mountain road called Trollstigen, the Troll's Path. So watch out. Norwegian stories have inspired writers and filmmakers all over the world. Roald Dahl, one of the most famous children's authors ever, had Norwegian parents. And the witches in his book, The Witches, were based on creepy Norwegian folktales that his grandmother would tell him on his holidays in Norway. From Viking warriors to mythical trolls, Norway is a land where history, legend, and make-believe are all part of the adventure. And Norwegian kids get to learn about it all. That reminds me, it's
Time for school.
If you love spending time outdoors, Norwegian school might be for you. Learning isn't just about sitting in a classroom, it's about exploring the world outside, even when it's cold. Norwegian kids start school the year they turn 6, but before that, most of them go to kindergarten where they play, explore, and get ready for learning. Primary school lasts 7 years, and here's something really surprising: kids don't get grades.
What?
Instead, teachers give feedback to help them improve. Norway's love of nature is built into learning. There's even a word for it, friluftsliv, meaning open-air living. Many schools have outdoor classrooms, and some, called forest schools, teach kids outside every day, rain, shine and snow. Lunchtime? Most Norwegian kids bring a packed lunch to school called madpakke, meaning food packet. It's a simple packed lunch of wholemeal bread with cheese, fish or meat wrapped in paper. Schools also offer milk and fruit and a veggie subscription program to keep students fueled for all that fresh air. Speaking of outdoor activities, Norway is famous for them. I think it must be
Sport time.
If there was one country that could be called the home of skiing, it's Norway. The evidence? A 4,000-year-old rock carving of a person gliding over the snow, one of the earliest depictions of skiing in the world. Ancient Norwegians didn't just ski for fun, they used it to hunt, travel, and to survive that snowy wilderness. Fast forward a few thousand years, and Norway is still leading the way. Norway was the first country to introduce ski competitions in the 1700s for soldiers. And by the 1800s, the world's first ski festival was held, a tradition that still attracts thousands of fans today. Skiing isn't just about sport here, it's part of Norway's identity. Cross-country skiing is the national sport, and Norway dominates the Winter Olympics, having won more medals than any other country. They've even hosted the Winter Games twice, in Oslo in 1952 and Lillehammer in 1994. But it's not all about the slopes. The most played sport in Norway is actually soccer. And for those long, dark polar nights, it makes sense that Norway is also home to one of the world's best chess players.
I win.
So, whether it's the rush of a downhill race or the quiet intensity of a chess match, Norway definitely knows how to win. Whew, all that cold weather and skiing has made me really hungry. Surely it must be nearly
Dinner time.
In Norway, be prepared to get your politeness on, because everything is eaten with a knife and fork.
Really?
Yep, that includes burgers, pizzas, tacos, even those packed lunches we were talking about earlier. No messy hands here. Norwegian food is shaped by its wild landscapes, with plenty of hearty traditional dishes. The national dish, fårikål, is a simple but delicious lamb and cabbage stew. But local meat like reindeer, moose, elk and other wildlife might also be on the menu. For those of you with a more adventurous palate, on a special occasion, there's smalahove, a boiled sheep's head, eyeballs and all. And for those of you who aren't quite so adventurous, you'll be pleased to learn that Norwegians also eat more frozen pizza per person than anyone else on the planet. Makes sense, really. You don't always feel like a sheep's head, do you? So, whether it's a steaming bowl of stew, a slice of reindeer, or a fork and knife pizza night, eating with family and friends is what it's all about.
Time for the Squiz.
This is the part of the podcast where you get to test how well you've been listening. Question number 1. What is the name of the group formed by Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland? Well done if you got this tricky one. It's called Scandinavia. Question number 2. Which ugly, hairy, mythical creature inhabits the forests of Norway? That's right, trolls live there. Question number 3. What is the national sport of Norway? The most popular sport is soccer, but the national sport is cross-country skiing. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thanks for staying curious about the world and joining me on this incredible trip to Norway. Now get out there and have a most excellent day. Over and out.